My favorite scene of the Matrix movies is the one where Neo and Trinity are trapped in a station subway and they need to get out. Trinity manages to get out, but Neo is trapped. And Trinity shouts at the screen, "Run, Neo, run!" And he doesn't. He turns and he faces the agent that's chasing them. And Trinity is flummoxed and she says to Morpheus, "What is he doing?" And Morpheus says, "He's beginning to believe." So welcome to this Morpheus Intelligence Update, where we're going to be exploring a little bit about what it is we can do to get to the place where we are released and flying in what we do, and to get our people to the place where they are released and flying in what they do. And for that, we're going to be focusing on a particular part of my book, Lead Like Morpheus, The Genius of Conscious Leadership. So we're going to be going into that, and we're going to be exploring specifically part 1, Awaken. And Awaken is where we want to get our people woken up to who they really are, taking full ownership of their emotions and their genius and their roles and all this kind of stuff. And we do it in 3 parts. There is a call, there is a build, and then there is a release. But you know what? That applies to us too. We also need our own call, our own build, our own release. You see, all of great leadership starts with self-leadership. And so when we do it for ourselves, automatically we are on this conscious journey and able to lead others and take them with us on that journey. So let's start in on the first chapter called Call. Now, this whole idea of being called to awaken, this call of becoming conscious and aware, is not a matter of us all sitting around in circles holding hands and singing Kumbaya. This is not a woo-woo thing. This is a very practical thing that impacts engagement, it impacts our humanity, and it ultimately massively impacts our bottom line. So, what then is conscious leadership? So consciousness, this call, is a call to becoming more conscious, to becoming more aware, more purposeful. And there's many facets to what we want to become aware of. So this consciousness, this awareness, comes in multiple areas. Awareness of our own genius. Each of us has a genius. Each of us, I believe, has something that we can do better than 99% of other people. And it's this thing that energizes us, that puts us into flow. So we want to become more aware of that. We also want to become more aware of our emotions. So many people view emotions as something to be suppressed. But you know what? When we suppress them, they're going to pop out again. So I view emotions as an indicator on a dashboard so that we know what to do and how to manage it. You know, it's quite simple. If the oil light comes on, put more oil in. Don't cover it up with a piece of tape, but we want to deal with our emotions. Another thing we want to be aware of is our intuition, our gut. You know, our gut is amazingly wise. We should not be ignoring it. In fact, we should be nurturing it and differentiating it between real sort of carnal cravings and what is a gut intuition and how could we leverage it. We should be more aware of our intellect, because our intellect and the way it works, we should be aware of the uniqueness of it. And we should also be aware of our bodies, our physicality. Our emotions live in them. They are not just transport mechanisms for our brains. They are part of our humanness. And we want to be more aware of the messages our bodies are sending and how we can respond rather than react. So this consciousness thing applies to ourselves as leaders. We want to ourselves go on this journey, this call of discovering our genius, and probably aligned with that, our purpose, aligned with that, our physical preferences. What is the best way for you to exercise? It's going to be unique for each person. What is the best way for you to find your ideal nutrition? It's going to be unique for each person. We want to get in touch with our emotions. What about our woundings? So we want to learn our wiring, but what about our woundings? And what are we going to do about our woundings? Is there something that we can do? What about our weaknesses? Is there something we can do about that? This is all part of this awareness. We want to tap into our intuition. And I'll tell you this very briefly, and that is that every time I tap into my intuition as a leader, I'm more successful in what I do and then applying my intellect to that intuition. And that has been a turning point in my leadership. What about you in your call? Our people need to be called as well. They are looking for discovering a place where they can fit in, a place that aligns with their values, that aligns with their wiring, aligns with their getting their weaknesses dealt with as well, where they can team for weakness. They want a place where they can grow. They want a place where they can thrive. We all have that need to thrive and grow. Some have suppressed it. Some have turned it into a capitulation, a victim thinking, oh, I'll just do whatever my boss says and nothing more. But we want to get out of that, because we want to get to the place where the call and that ownership, their genius, their intellect, their wiring, even for us to take care or to be aware of their humanness, their weakness and their woundings as well. They want a place where that can all happen for them, and not just for them. They want a place where ownership is developed so that they are fully owning everything that they're doing and everything that they need to do in their role. So we want to get away from we as the leader have to own everything. We want to empower our people, and the call is the first step for that. So what do we do when we have gone through the call? Well, now we need to build, because you see, knowing your wiring, knowing your talents does not make it a strength. We need to build on them. We need to discover how we can do that. And we're going to now move on to chapter 2, where we're going to explore what do we do that follows on from call. We have a model. We call it building for release. And this model is proven over time and time again. This has its origins in me working with leaders from over 100 countries over a 20-year period and discovering the problems with our typical development models, in that they don't all deal with the primary issue, and the primary issue is mindsets. So let's have a look at that. Let's see how we can use this model. So the thumb stands for mindsets. It's also the strongest digit of all of our digits. It's the one that can touch all the other ones. So we'll get back to that a little bit later on. But it's all about the mindset. So returning to the matrix, Neo had a mindset change. And instead of running, he faced the enemy. Instead of thinking he's not the one, he started to believe maybe he is the one. That is a mindset change, and that's why that scene for me is so pivotal in the Matrix movies, because what he believed changed from a limiting belief to an empowering belief. And don't we want that for us and for our people? The next digit that we look at, the first of the fingers, is the pointing finger. It's the clarity of direction. It's all about clarity. It's all about direction. So what is that direction about? Well, the obvious thing is, where are we going? What are the goals? What are the objectives? What is the vision? The clarity about the direction. But it also includes other things like the clarity of the values. In other words, what we want to frame the how of what we do. So an example of this would be, it doesn't help if you've got somebody who achieves targets but violates the values, which actually can destroy the reputation of the organization and the team. And so we want to be very, very clear. So that clarity is goals, vision, objectives, tasks, values, and the why. It's got to deal with the why as well. Why is this important? Why are we going in that direction? So in other words, that clarity is also motivational. And one last thing about clarity, the latest research says it is the foundation of engagement. Without clarity, it's impossible to build engagement. The next digit is the middle finger. Now, the middle finger is the strongest and most powerful of our 4 fingers. And it is crucial to the genius, the discovery of our strengths and our weaknesses, our wiring and our weaknesses. So we want to discover exactly where we are brilliant, where we can be in flow. And this is way above excellence, by the way. This is where it is a weird thing. It's like an example would be where a task that takes me a day, I delegate to a person who's a zone of genius it is, and they do it in half an hour. And better than I would have. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about something that is in a different league, something of an exponentially increasing performance, a place of flow, a place of genius. And we want to discover that genius. We want to make sure that as we're growing ourselves and our people, we are working on the genius and we're catering for the weakness. Because actually, do you know that? You know something really interesting? The thing that weakens and drains you the most, and the definition of the weakness is it's something that weakens us, that drains us, that depletes us. That very thing is going to energize somebody else. And so in conscious leadership, we look to partner for weakness. We look to see where has somebody got a genius, where I have a weakness, and where's that person's weakness, where is there somebody else with a genius? And that's how we operate, if that is necessary. But of course, it's built on the clarity of the direction, because there's no point in having a genius if it isn't going to help towards the direction. The ring finger is trust of values. Think of that. The ring that symbolizes trust, that symbolizes connection, that symbolizes integrity. That's really what that ring finger is about, isn't it? And the ring that goes on it. And so we call it the wisdom finger, because it's the wisdom of being trustworthy, of having integrity, of having grit, having perseverance, having tenacity, because of our belief. We believe and it grows it. And that's what that's about. So that wisdom is the combination of integrity, of trust, of reliability, of tenacity, of grit. That's wisdom. And the final finger, you may think of it as, why would ability be the smallest finger? Well, ability is just the knowledge and the skill. So why do I make it so small, so insignificant? For a very simple reason, that in an environment where people have absolute clarity, they know their genius and how to apply the genius to that clarity. They have the tenacity and the integrity, and they know how to apply it to that clarity. Knowledge and skill is simple at that point. It's simple and even automatic. It's needed because we need to turn talents into strengths, which means we need to add knowledge. We need to add skill. We need to develop the things, this knowledge and skills for that clarity of purpose and direction that we are aiming for. But that development becomes so simple when you put the other things in place. Now, what about the combination? Well, the combination is that the thumb touches all of them. So what are our mindsets around the clarity, the values? Have they bought into the values? Do they believe that they even matter? Will we enforce them? If somebody violates the values, are we going to do nothing about it? Because if we do nothing about it, we're effectively saying the values mean nothing, therefore we have no integrity and we shouldn't even have them. And the same applies to every other part of that direction. But what about the genius? You know, so many people have the mindset that our job in life is to fix our weaknesses, not to grow our strengths. Well, the research shows that there is a way more power in leveraging and growing strengths than in trying to fix weaknesses. Fixing weaknesses always has a ceiling, a limit of how far you can go. But if we are empowering strengths, it has an exponential, unlimited potential. So that's the mindset. Is the mindset fixing weaknesses or leveraging strengths? Then what about the mindsets around the wisdom? Do we have a mindset which says, I'm going to live in integrity with the values? Do we have a mindset that says, I'm going to see things through? Have I dealt with my woundings to the point where these limiting beliefs and saboteurs are dealt with? That's part of that wisdom. It's a mindset about it. And then finally, the mindset around knowledge and skill. The mindset is, am I looking to add to my talent so that I can address that? That's the mindset that I am looking for. So why does this hand model matter? Well, very simple. It's based on my experience of working with leaders from more than 100 countries. It's based on looking at where things go wrong. You see, over and over and over again, I have people come on training and they gain knowledge and they gain skill. Yes, they're very skilled when they leave because they've even proven it. They can practice it and they've done it and they've demonstrated it and all the rest of it. But you know what? 80% of them within a month or two are not doing it anymore. In other words, the mindset didn't change. And that's the key of this model, is that we want a model that is proven, that will result in lasting change. That's what we need for the build, because there's no point in releasing somebody if they're not going to practice exactly how we've built them. This leads us to release. What is release? Well, release is like launch. So think of this, maybe a little saying from parenting might be useful. Our job as parents is not to raise children, but to raise adults. Maybe our job as leaders is not to raise dependents, but to raise independence. People who can function and are aligned and connected with us. They're not so independent that they're disconnected, but they're independent in the sense that they can function because they have bought in, because they are equipped, because they own their role and they own it in a way that aligns with our values. One of the things I keep coming across is leaders who cannot release their people. They are maybe called by their people control freaks, but they have a need to control. These are people who cannot release, and they have this need for control, and they almost feel insecure with the very idea of not being in control. And the problem, I believe, is that there wasn't a clear call and build. Because with a clear call and build, I mean, imagine this. If you've got an individual and their mindsets of belief have been impacted. In fact, their mindsets of direction, they've bought into the values, they've bought into the goals, they've bought into the vision, and they're working towards that day and night. They know their own genius. They know where they can be most powerful. They also know who they need to partner with in their areas that they're not so strong. They have integrity. They have learned the lessons. They have the tenacity. They will see it through no matter what. They have wisdom. They've dealt with their weaknesses or are busy dealing with their weaknesses. And finally, they have the knowledge and skill. Now, if people have all of that, why would we need to have control? Because the reality is they are self-controlled, they are self-led, they are self-motivated. They have the ownership. So how do we do the release? Well, I mean, some people will hold a ceremony or whatever it might be. It might be something symbolic. It might be a handshake. Who knows what will work for each individual and each situation. But I will say this, that it's very important to stay connected. Release is not abdication. It is not abdication. An example of release is a pilot learning to fly. So imagine you're an instructor, you've got many hours of flying, you maybe even have a team of instructors because you may even have other skills that you want to impart that you don't have. But the day comes when the trainee pilot, the learner pilot is ready for their first solo flight. You do not abandon them, you're there. In fact, you're probably in the control tower where you can talk to them all the time. But there is this connection that remains. But you know with confidence that they are ready and that they can be released. We want to make sure that we do not abandon our people. We want to make sure we stay connected. We as leaders have the right to know the status of every single project on a regular basis. Release is not abdication, and it is not disconnection. Release is connection without control. I want to leave you with a challenge. I've talked about this call, build, release process, this awakening process for you as a conscious leader and for your people. But I specifically want to talk about you. I'm effectively placing before you a red pill and a blue pill. The red pill is embrace this, go on the journey, maybe get the book, maybe get the game plan and start having a look at this, because conscious leadership is a journey. There's no arrival in conscious leadership, but it's a journey, but it has a starting point. Take the red pill and join us. Or if you feel you're not ready to look in that mirror, then take the blue pill rather. But don't take no pill. Take the blue pill. The blue pill, forget about what we've said. Forget about this idea of consciousness. Go and find another way that you're going to be an effective leader. And rather do that than not take a decision at all. But I tell you what, if you do take the red pill, it's a decision of courage, because you're going to look deep in the mirror and you are going to live a transformed life where you are leading others. You'll look behind you and they'll be following because you are leading from within. And the old joke is, if you think you're a leader and you look behind you and nobody's following you, merely going for a walk. Be the kind of leader that people want to follow because you are on your consciousness journey. They will automatically want to get in step with you and keep following you. So that is part 1 of my book, where we are dealing with the Awaken process of call, build, release. And we have a lot more detail there and a lot more that we can discover in the book. And may you embrace that. Our next Morpheus Intelligence update is going to be a Q&A on this thing we've just discussed. And so there you will have the opportunity to ask your questions. Lodge your questions now about anything that I've just discussed in this first section. The call, the build, the release, the book. Ask any question you want to. We will be doing that as a live YouTube video. Join us and let's discuss your questions about awakening.